Well, hello YouTube, it's Petey Two Finger. Forgive me for running the air conditioning. It's that time of year, the guys. I started in making this video, and the lawn trimming, the lawnmower guys showed up, and they've got a couple of guys with weed whackers, and a guy with a leaf blower, and a guy with a lawnmower, and they all showed up. So I'm making this again. I wanted to show you the M Audio uh, multi-track Microtrack 2496 that we bought. This is a two-track digital recorder with good preamps in it, and um, it runs a memory format called compact flash. This one came with a 1 gigabyte Lexar card, and last night we ordered a 16 gig card for $15. Now this was an auction purchase, and it was $10 was where it was at. I bid $13.67, and then the shipping was like $6, so we paid 20 for it, and with the $15 for the memory card, all in all, it cost us under $50 for all this stuff, including this enclosure and all the parts, and the cable. I ordered a custom cable. So the idea with this is it's going to plug into the mixing board when we do our remote music days, something like this. There's a pair of quarter-inch inputs, and then this will go to the mixing board's headphone jack. Now, this is not the cable I will be using. This is a really affordable cable. I bought this for $1 for 99 cents 2 years ago, and have really never used it because it's kind of cheap cable. But I used it today. What I did, I hooked up. This is like, you could think of it as an iPod, but a really good one. It's a Creative Labs Zen 60 gig, and I piped over out of the headphone jack into the quarter-inch. I piped over some music, some of my original music. I listened to a song called Seven and a song called Shoe Boogie. I recorded those into this, and man, did it sound good. This recorder sounds really good. It came with 454 megabytes of audio files, which were really talented piano players. This was a woman who taught piano, who owned this, who wasn't teaching Mary Had a Little Lamb. This was some dynamite, like uh, modern classical, like weird stuff, like Zappa sounding. And it was a recital, so she had the files were tagged with people's names, and of course everyone had a different playing style. Not all of them sounded like Zappa, but one of them was like a Music Concrete, like, or just an avant-garde sounding thing. So yeah, I'm here to talk about the contraption. I these Microtracks are great. They really are. They there's one up there. I offered the guy $12 for it, and he accepted. But I already received this, and I'm not gonna buy two. So you can grab one of these right now for maybe around $15. I'm not sure what his shipping was. Probably come out to be about 20, I would guess. But why do I have it mounted on this giant box? Well, I will tell you, this is a power supply box that I made. It's got this is a 8.5 volt pack. Okay, this comes out to 8.5 volts. There's 2 series connections and 1 parallel. Okay, so these are 2 pairs. And there's this fuse here, and then a LM2596 DC buck or voltage regulator. This little circuit has a trimmer on it. You can see the trim pot here in blue. And when you supply voltage to the input, you can reduce that voltage. You can't increase it, but you can reduce that voltage. And there's typically like a 2 volt surplus, meaning if I'm putting in 8.5 volts DC, the most I can expect to get out of it is 6.5, which is fine because we're looking for 5 volts to power our Microtrack. Now, the internal battery for this unit was dead. It was completely dud. This is it. This is the battery. I received the unit kind of late. It was like 6:30 p.m. The FedEx lady came running up and dropped it on the porch. We brought it in and I plugged it in, and I was so nervous about this thing not working. I ended up setting the timer for 2.5 hours to see, like, let's give it a chance to recharge. And eventually, like an hour and a half into that, I started really thinking, well, it came out in 2007, so the chances are this battery is kaput. So I looked up M-Audio Microtrack battery. I Googled that, and then, of course, here come the videos and articles of people telling how their Microtrack died. They retailed for $500, so people were pretty adamant about getting them going. Anyway, I opened up. This one actually had been opened, and they had broken some of the clips on the one side, so it was already not fully closed. And I used this pick tool to come in and pry it up and expose the battery. I tested the battery. When the charging cable was plugged in. I was using this sharper image charger, which terminates in a 110 volt plug, and then you get 4 ports. 3 are labeled 1 amp, 1 is labeled 2.4 amp. And it's interesting that the Microtrack power supply is a 1 amp power supply. So initially, when we received the unit, I had plugged it into the computer, and nothing happened. When I plugged it into the sharper image 1 amp outlet, it came on. It'll come on and it'll give you this charging logo, and that little box up there will go whoop, 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 like, hey, I'm charging. So yeah, it was psyching me out. It was like, oh, I'm charging, but it wasn't. That battery, the internal battery, this thing was completely dead. So that led me to an hour and a half of wasting time, because my wife was sitting here saying, you need to wait and be patient, don't hurry up, because she knows how I when I get in a hurry, there tends to be smoke. So yeah, we unsoldered these red and black wire from these 2 points here after testing it. Like, basically, I put the meter on here. nothing happened on the meter. Then we plugged in the USB charging cable to the 1 amp outlet, and when that screen came up, it would come up like almost 5 volts hitting this here. So yeah, I'm like, this is not good, you know. Anyway, we had this little MP3. This is a an MP3 player that takes a micro card, and I got this for the Simply Vibe. I got this for like $2 at a Goodwill. It's got a line in, and then here is a little TF, a little SD, micro SD card slot. So this had a 3.7 volt lithium ion battery in this package here, in this slot. It was rated at 1050 milliamp mAh, and I'm using that battery, 3.7 volts, so it's basically the same type of battery. Here it is. It has a case. This doesn't have a case, and this is a little bigger because this is a 1200 milliamp battery, and this is overrated. I'm sure it's not 1050. It's probably more like 500. So right now, this device, the way that this contraption works is the stock battery that's powering the unit. And I initially installed this inside of the Microtrack, okay? And it's a little bit fat. It's just a little bit like, first I had double-sided tape in there, and that was really making it bulge out. So eventually I realized that these switches here were sitting funny. They were sitting at an angle. And that was because the way the wire was running in there. So I drilled a hole through the back of the chassis of the multi-track and ran the power wires through, and this is stuck on here with some dum-dum. Okay, so all of this, the batteries and the voltage regulator, that's tuned. Like I built it and clipped my multimeter onto the output, turned it on, and then spun that trimmer to hit 5 volts. And then on the output of that, on the output of this voltage regulator guy here, I soldered in this, which is a USB cable that I cut it and stripped it back. So how it works is it does run off the internal battery as a buffer, kind of, but it's really being powered. You turn this switch on, and I don't know if you can see that blue light from the LED, but these 4 18650 batteries are what's powering the unit, okay? And the unit, I mean, it doesn't see that. It sees just like this, like 1 amp of 5 volt, 1 amp coming in. Actually, this voltage regulator thing, this buck, is rated at 3 amp. I'm not sure the amperage we're getting. The way that I wired it up, I did a pair of 18650s. So here's 2, and they're connected on the bottom. They sit flip-flopped. So the negative of the one is connected to the positive of the other. And then on the top, you have your positive and negative terminal. And there's 2 pair of those mirrored. So there's a pair of wires that go over, and then the wires come out. So it's doubled up. It's double the milliamp hours. And I haven't tested this to see how long it will last. What I can always do is add, I could disassemble all this, move everything around, and add another 2 batteries in here. I could add another 6 I could get a bigger box, and I could do whatever I want. But for now, the unit has a Velcro pad. You can kind of see that in there. It's a really nice, it's not typical Velcro. This is much nicer than the average Velcro, and the glue is a lot better on it. So I wiped everything down with alcohol, and then I also used an embossing tool, which is kind of like a miniature heat gun, and I heated up the adhesive on this Velcro stuff just to give it to let it bond. The power switch is here. It's kind of in the way. I can always move it, but you can actually run RCAs without. It doesn't get in the way of anything, really. It really doesn't, if you look. And I could always put a low profile switch, but yeah, this is going to sit up around in the area of the mixing board or wherever I put it. There's going to be a short, more of a professional cable. See, this has an adapter here, and there's a connection here. So those are 2 points where you lose a little bit. But I've got it was on sale. It was like $5.99 for this cable. But it has a pair of these. The cable isn't so thin, and they're metal connectors. And then there's a stereo 6.35 mil. It's not a 90, but I don't want a 90 because where it sits on the mixture, there's already permanent install pair of 90s there, and this kind of sits in the middle of those. And I'm going to be removing this, so I want a regular, not a 90. So yeah, this thing, the recordings that came on it, the piano recordings were done with the built, there's a little T mic that it comes with, which I don't have. However, I've got mics here. I've got a collection of mics. I've been buying stuff. I've got this one, which we're not using, which I need to see if I can get this working. Am I going to be using this for microphone recording? Well, I can. There's different ways to hook this up. It's got phantom power. It's got TRS 1/4 inch inputs. And then it's got a 3.5 that has voltage on it. So you can use those types of mics. But this is going to be my portable 2-track recording rig. And I know, why don't you just that whole thing? And I have stuff like this, which I've got another bigger one of those here. The reason I didn't just was because I don't have a battery that's thin enough to fit inside of the chassis. So that's why it is what it is. But I mean, I had already decided, and see, like something like this would pair really nicely with it. Velcro to the back, and then get some kind of a custom shorty cable. But to be honest with you, it's for my needs and for what we're going to be using it for. I'm going to get a little puff bag that this sits in with a handle, a carry bag, and it is what it is. And it's as close to being perfect as I could care less about finding anything else or reducing the size of it, having to have a little, tiny, tiny thing to record. More importantly is the budget aspect of it. And then it didn't take a real lot of time. So I'm super stoked because of the quality of the recordings on this thing is really something. This is the best recorder I've ever had. It records really, really well. And I'm going to want to put some kind of quick release thing on it and different connectors so I can run stuff like this, so I can sneak it into shows and bootleg shows. But you know what? I've done that before. I had a stereo cassette recorder that was a micro cassette that was a $300 recorder that I got when I was a kid. And it had a mic that came with it, and I built mics. I had active mics and a hat. I used to bootleg. I had a battery pack, and it ruins those shows when you go in there and you're taping, and it's not a taping show. It ruins the fun, the experience for you. So you get a bootleg of it, and nowadays it's like, that stuff is readily available usually with YouTube, especially if it's a bigger known artist. So I really don't think I'm going to be using it for those more nefarious purposes. But I'm super happy about this one. It was a long day yesterday because I did some... I installed these crossovers into these tiny little tweeter cabinets for so I can turn a guitar speaker or a full whatever, add a tweeter to it, and then use it for modeling or use it for PA. So I did all of that, and then I had to do this, and then it was like a long day. We'll just put it that way. Anyway, you guys, thank you for joining me on this video, and I will see you soon. Peace.